Konnichiwa, fleshies. Today we are doing a post-mortem on cinematic universes. Cinematic universes being a series of films taking place in the same universe while also not necessarily being direct sequels. Like Die Hard 1 through 4, 5 are a series of films but not necessarily a cinematic universe. However, if the films crossed over with, let's say, Terminator at some point, or it was confirmed that they were in the same continuity, then there would be a Die Hard/Terminator cinematic universe. Also, let me get this out of the way. Yes, Marvel is the most successful one, by far. But this video ain't about Marvel. It's about all the guys that tried to copy Marvel. Now, the concept of a shared universe is actually not new to movies. Marvel did not invent this whole concept, but actually just made the first really interconnected and successful one in decades. Before them, there were the Universal Monster Universe, Godzilla and his bajillion films, the Alien/Predator movies, and the View Askewniverse, which is the universe where most of Kevin Smith's work takes place. And besides those examples in the past, there really haven't been any truly successful ones like Marvel. Nothing that broke box office records as consistently and as quickly. I mean, you can argue about Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and Star Wars, but Lord of the Rings is 2 trilogies, Harry Potter is 2 separate linear series, and the Star Wars movies have reined back in their expectations after Solo fucked up the Star Wars gravy train. Cinematic universes are really hard to make, and every single attempt to create one has failed or been scaled back massively. In the case of Star Wars, not even Disney has managed to recreate their own cash cow. Here are some franchises that are living proof as to how hard cinematic universes are to make. The Dark Universe. Remember this? Started with Dracula Untold, then it was like, oh yeah, haha, just joking, that's not the one we wanted to start with. Then they released all this fucking promotional material with Johnny Depp, Javier Bardem, and Russell Crowe. Then The Mummy bombed, and that's the last we heard of them.
I'm not interested in that at all.
King Arthur and Hood. Apparently there was supposed to be a cinematic universe for both, which is why Merlin and Percival don't appear in King Arthur. Joke's on them because that movie bombed. Also, this Hood thing was planned with solo movies for like Little John and Guinevere or whoever, but it never really panned out because Hood was never made in the first place. Not to be mistaken for Robin Hood, or Robin Hood Origins, or whatever that movie's called. Cloverfield, I guess, technically. I don't know if this really counts because it's more of a Twilight Zone type thing, except for like a snippet of the latest movie, but even then, the hype significantly cooled on this universe. And all these are the ones that were kind of like DOA. Besides Cloverfield, these universes only lasted 1 movie. Cinematic universes have to be built off of solid foundations, whether it's critical reception, box office, or best case, both. A weak or shaky movie often spells the end. The Fox Marvel Universe. This one is a weird one because it's mostly X-Men movies and then 1 Fantastic Four movie that they plan to maybe fold into Deadpool 2. It also includes Deadpool, but it's not really clear when or where in the continuity it is. I also don't even know if it counts because of this, because it could just be a long series with some spin-off movies like Logan too, so... Transformers. They're planning one that starts with Bumblebee. The movie underperformed but did well critically, so hopefully this means that the Optimus and Bumblebee buddy cop sequel does well. The Sonyverse. This thing started out with Amazing Spider-Man 2 trying to plant seeds for like a Black Cat movie and a Sinister Six movie, because you'd want to see the Sinister Six without Spider-Man, right? This ended up weird because now we have a Tom Holland Spider-Man and a Tom Hardy Venom who I'm pretty sure can't interact with each other. Oh yeah, and fucking Morbius! But don't count out Sony because Venom made bank. The DCEU, aka the DC Cinematic Universe, or Cinematic Extended Universe. DC Extended Universe, or Expanded Universe, whatever it is. Oof, this is a big one because basically the trajectory was, hey, let's try our best to get into the cinematic universe game because we are also a big comic book company just like Marvel. Then they made a bunch of movies that made a lot of money, but not as much as they should have, and also these movies were not particularly well received. But they had 1 really solid hit critically/financially, and now they're trying to replicate that and kind of giving up on the expanded universe stuff. They also seem to be taking that and running with it, making shit like Shazam, Aquaman, and the Joker. Kind of weird concepts compared to the obvious targets like a Superman, Batman, or Green Lantern movie. Also, this Birds of Prey movie looks wild. This is an example of a cinematic universe that has really pivoted from a singular story-driven universe just to being satisfied that these movies are in the same world, sort of. And that was always my complaint with DC. In some aspects they had the advantage, and in others they were disadvantaged. They shouldn't have tried to replicate the Marvel formula, because there's no way someone can catch up to them, especially by doing the same thing. Hopefully these movies do well, and the DC universe comes back full force. Robert Pattinson Batman's gonna be dope. And now, for the two winners of the not Marvel but still successful Cinematic Universe Awards. Conjuring. Now yeah, I know this footage isn't of The Conjuring, but that's because I'm a scaredy cat and I don't want to sift through scary movie footage. So here's some wholesome shit. Conjuring is surprisingly successful. There have been 6 films in 6 years, with 2 more in development. This volume is crazy considering it's only 1 movie away from being tied with the DCEU. And not to mention, all these movies are crazy profitable. They're made on these comparatively shoestring budgets of at max 40 million, and then they make like 300 million worldwide. I'm not a horror expert, but one of the things that make horror so great as a film genre is that you can make a low-budget horror film and people will go and see it. Because people, no matter the season, are apparently always trying to shit their pants and see these movies. These movies don't even have to be good or well received to make a shit ton of money, and this means that the Conjuring universe can just throw shit at the wall, and even if it doesn't stick, it doesn't matter. Horror doesn't come with these huge expectations. Annabelle, The Nun, and Curse of La Llorona were around 28% on Rotten Tomatoes, and they made an average of $250 million on $18 million budgets. That's a nice franchise. The monsterverse. This is a fucking slow-ass cinematic universe. As a huge fan of Godzilla, nothing frustrates me more than the pace of Legendary's monsterverse. However, that's the thing that has kept them on pace. These movies are kind of made one at a time, and while they had a plan in the future, I don't think Legendary was in a big rush to make these movies. And it shows. There's a lot of thought, whether it's the Godzilla movie that does brave shit like hide Godzilla and kill the main star in the first half hour, or make a King Kong movie that's not a remake of the same plot like the last 2. They've built their universe together and they clearly have a big movie in mind, which is Godzilla vs. Kong in 2020, but none of the movies, and by that I mean, 2 movies, are really dependent on each other. It's not a case of constant sequel beat going on like in Amazing Spider-Man 2, and there's the organization that keeps track of all the kaiju, but that's it. That's all the commonalities. And then they've been rewarded for it. Both movies have done pretty okay critically and have made some nice money in the box office. Even though it's going to only have 4 movies in 6 years, which is a glacial pace compared to other cinematic universes, they're doing great. I'm excited for Godzilla King of the Monsters, and I can't wait to see what else they have planned. And here's the list of newcomers. Valiant, a comic book company starting off with a Vin Diesel-led movie about a character named Bloodshot, Hasbro wanting to start an expanded universe with G.I. Joe and Transformers, and Hanna-Barbera with Scooby-Doo and the Jetsons or some shit. I don't know, dude. And now Sony, like the gaming division, is starting their own film TV division, and I swear if they do a cinematic universe, I'm a puke. And the point of all this, if there is a point, is cinematic universes are hard, and copying Marvel isn't the way to go. The MCU is like a train going at full velocity. There's no way that anyone beats it now. It's like, you gotta make the filmmaking infrastructure to beat that pipeline, and no one's even close to that. Not to mention you need the right stars, directors, story, and most importantly, Kevin Feige. To replicate Marvel's success and plan, you gotta have a visionary as the head of your universe. You need someone willing to guide people and make adjustments. Again, not even Disney was able to replicate the MCU's success, and they had arguably the best property in place to do so. They tried with Kathleen Kennedy, but after Solo, it kinda just went wherever. Say what you will about the new trilogy and new Star Wars, but something that it's definitely lacking is planning. The fact that Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams didn't have a plan to go by already is different from the MCU. Rian Johnson was just given carte blanche and a bunch of mysteries to unravel by J.J., and he made adjustments accordingly. He made Luke from a magical dude stuck on an island with a bunch of rocks floating around him to a hermit isolated from the Force. I don't think any director in the MCU can make changes as big in their own installments. I mean, look what happened to Edgar Wright. You also need a high degree of investment and faith. A lot of these unsuccessful cinematic universes usually share a thing in common: a bad movie. One bad movie can tank a cinematic universe. Luckily, Marvel has largely avoided this issue besides one questionable movie, in my opinion. And even so, they trucked on. A lot of these companies want to start cinematic universes, then when one movie flops, they stop completely. It's like, hey, The Mummy might have been bad, but who's to say The Invisible Man would have been bad too? Or The Wolfman, or Bride of Frankenstein, or whatever else you're gonna do. Maybe there's something else to it besides doing what Marvel's doing. Maybe it involves a high degree of curation, or just very careful planning. Maybe even DC's method of just put people out there and let them do what they do best might work out. All I can say is, you can't compete with Marvel by doing what they do. You just can't. You just gotta figure out a different slant. And whether that's slow and steady pacing, or keeping all the films in one super financially bankable genre, who knows? What cinematic universes are you excited for? Let me know in the comments. And until next week probably, stay cool and stay fleshy.